And now we are here with our main segment for Mastering Dungeons with our awesome guest, Celeste Conowitch. Welcome, Celeste.
Hello, hello. So excited to be back on the show.
We're really happy that you could join us. And I say we as if Shawn were here, but he's not. He's off
He's here in
traveling.
spirit.
He would like to
Yes,
be, for
yes.
sure he would. And I know he's a little jealous because these questions that I'm going to ask are things that we're super excited to know about. So he's going to have to watch it instead of actually asking the questions. And I'm very sorry for him.
Rats.
And so, Celeste, you are here for a number of reasons. In the past, you've been here because you are an incredibly accomplished game designer. You are a DM that's world renowned and much more. Your work includes the Venture Maidens. Oh, which I meant to bring my book. It's over on a shelf over there. But the Venture Maidens actual play and role playing game supplement. Your work for Dungeons and Dragons. Your work for 2C Gaming, all kinds of hallowed institutions of gaming, and now you're the senior game designer for Tales of the Valiant for Kobold Press. Is this all
Yep,
true?
yep. So joined the Kobold Press. Yeah, team full time. A little bit over a year ago, came on as the senior game designer, and of course went right into lead design on Tales of the Valiant.
Yeah, that was wow.
A heck of a kickoff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
But I've been a longtime freelancer with Kobold Press. I've been working with them for years and years. So it was a very natural fit
that's awesome.
when I yeah, I came on full
Yeah.
time and love everything they do and happy to be one of the kobolds these days.
That's fantastic. Congratulations, I think, because wow, that is like
Yes.
that's intimidating levels of tough. That is impressive. You are doing level 20 stuff right now. Um, so
There are
yeah,
certainly not a lot of full-time game designers out there, so I'm very lucky to be here, and certainly always want to do the title proud.
yeah, well, you are. Thank you. Thank you for living the dream for those of us who live it vicariously through you. All right, so before, and I want to get all into the Tales of Valiant, which I know folks want to as well. Like in our Discord, Patreon Discord, they are always asking, about Tales of Valiant and the design choices and all these kinds of things. So this is, I know a lot of folks are very interested in hearing about that. But before we go there, looking back on your career, I have kind of three questions. Number
Okay.
one of the favorite things you have designed.
Ooh, oh man, that's hard. Obviously, well, doing the Venture Maidens campaign guide, so creating a whole
Mm,
book based on the world of this podcast and stream was pretty exciting, from top to bottom. Definitely like a dream project there. But that probably doesn't count as like obviously, right? On otherwise, I think some of my favorite things I've designed have been alternate like systems or things that really kind of crack open 5e and do some interesting
mm,
stuff. Comes to mind in Kobold Press, the Tome of Heroes book,
yeah.
I designed a draconic rune casting system, which is like an alternative like spell casting system where you can pair different words basically of like the draconic language and then make your own spells. So that kind of stuff where you get to like really get into it and do
Yeah,
creative
yeah.
stuff. Ooh, I just love it. I love
Lots of
it.
flavor.
Also like the kind of work I got to do on, Kingdoms and Warfare for MCDM.
Yeah.
Like that is also those really weird kind of
Hmm.
mechanics, like making these factions and how do they work and like bringing, war into D&D. Those kind of challenges just wreck my world.
That's great. Yeah, MCDM is good for that sort of bizarre stuff where they go like, yeah, give me the weird,
Thinking
like,
outside the box.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. So, we talked about all the cool stuff you've done. My second question is, what advice would you give to someone who wants to follow in your footsteps?
I would say be prepared to work so much harder than you think you're going to, and then cultivate your relationships
Mm,
in the space. Like the best thing you can do is support other creators, because it's always the creators who come at the end of the day to support you.
yeah.
Right? I wouldn't be anywhere here if I hadn't tried to, do my work with kindness, with empathy,
Hmm.
and responsibility,
Nice. I love that.
honestly.
Yeah,
So keep that in mind. You're not here alone, I think is the
it's
big
great.
the big point.
Fantastic. All right. So let's say you're doing a special episode of the Venture Maidens and you get to invite one person on to join the team. Who would it be?
Oh my gosh. That is so hard. These are good questions. You're like really, we're going right for it. I'm enjoying it. I would probably, if I could get anyone, I would probably want to pick like one of my favorite authors, or maybe
Mm,
someone who like turned me on to the fantasy genre. I don't know, maybe like a Tamora Pierce would be so
hmm.
cool to
Oh,
have on,
yeah.
or like Tamsin Muir, like of the
Yeah.
Gideon series, like that. I would love to have a famous like femme author on there
Nice.
and just like see what that was like.
Yeah.
Other than us
Yeah.
all being shell shocked as
Yeah.
heck because it would be so cool, but
Yeah. I tend to always go to movies like a Sigourney Weaver kind of thing. Like I just like that. I
well, oh my God, that'd be so cool.
right? Just like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
destroy. By the way, speaking of fantasy authors, I saw your epic fantasy YouTube video, which was fantastic, that you did with
Yay! Oh, with World Anvil?
World Anvil.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good.
I
So
mean,
check that out.
obviously, epic fantasy, high fantasy, those are huge in the front of my mind since those are really what we're hammering with Tales of the Valiant. We're
Hmm.
focusing very much on that aspect
Yeah.
of in our evolution of 5e and just really trying to bring that to the forefront. So at the top of my mind all the time. So it's always fun to talk about.
And in our show notes, we've got here that you have a website, celesteconowitch.com. So everybody can head there and be reading over it and finding out all your exploits while we talk about these other topics. And then at the end of the show, we're also going to ask where you like to be found. But let's talk about this amazing Kickstarter. It is Tales of the Valiant RPG, which is ending June 23rd. It is the 14th, the day this drops, which is also the day we're recording. This is all it's almost live. um,
Yeah.
and Tales of the Valiant says, it's got kind of two nice quotes that I like here at the top of the Kickstarter page. It says, "The new Tales of the Valiant RPG keeps the 5th edition community independent and tabletop moving forward. Use it to tell your own tales of 5e high adventure." And then it says, "Tales of the Valiant TOV keeps all the best of 5e D&D and adds a Kobold Press spin to the well-loved game. It combines the Creative Commons foundation of 5th edition with new elements to create a powerful Kobold-style 5e with teeth." That's great. Is that Wolfgang? Is that you? Who wrote that? That's
Yeah.
nice. That's Wolfgang? Yeah.
It was definitely one of us bouncing that around. But that's certainly something, whoever said it, we brought it up and we're like, yeah, that's the way. I mean, we're
Yeah.
probably
Good
best
words.
known, for our Tome of Beasts, our giant monster compendium.
Mhm.
So people know we've got teeth. We've got sharp little
Yeah.
kobold teeth. So we
Yeah. Yeah.
wanted to
Yeah. I've
incorporate that.
On our Discord, we often hear people talking about I used Kobold Press monsters and people felt it.
That's awesome.
That's
Yes,
good.
I there's nothing like scaring your players with a TOB, monster. They're like, "Wait, what is this? I'm sorry. It just did what?" Oh, it's glorious.
Awesome. Awesome. So I've got a link to the Kickstarter in the show notes. We'll also put it in the YouTube video, but it's easy. Go to Kickstarter, search for Tales of the Valiant. It'll pop right up. Um, so I want to go back to how this all started because Shawn and I were fascinated by RPG design and how companies approach projects. A lot of the folks listening to this will have heard of Project Black Flag, which really got talked a lot about after the after and during the OGL debacle. But this it seems like this project had been in the works before that.
Yeah, yeah. So when I was brought on originally, before the eventful January that we all remember so well, this was a project that was already well underway. Kobold Press has been around for a long time, making 5th edition for its entire history. We made stuff for Pathfinder. Like it's a company that's been here for a while, and of course, when you are a company that's been in the space, of course, plans to make your own game, your own home system are the ultimate goal, right? So all of that process was already starting. We were already looking at what we can build with this foundation and this audience that loved 5th edition and loved our 5th edition products. So that was all in progress. Of course, when January hit, it went full throttle. But the good news is we were intellectually prepared
Yeah.
for for this project.
And what is it specifically that makes a company like Kobold Press want to create their own spin? Is it that you're working so well, I shouldn't even try to answer the question. I can think of ideas, but I guess I'm drawn to sort of what is it that makes you, Kobold Press, not just want to create Tome of Beasts and a book on magic and adventures, but to really say like, we want to create the all of it. We want to have the version of it. What is the spark of that?
Yeah, so I think the big thing is just the security of it, taking control of your own future, having
Mm,
something that is truly yours. Because as a third party company making 5e, that's always what your label is going to be. You're always
mm,
going to be a third party. It's never going to come directly from you. And while that can be really lucrative, of course, to provide support for popular games, the future is uncertain in that
mhm,
model. As we've seen, we don't really know what the history of Dungeons and Dragons is. We can guess, we're sort of hearing things, pieces come in all the time, but even what we're hearing now isn't a guarantee that that will be the same in 5 years, in 10 years. So when you do choose to make your own core system like this, you're investing in yourself, in your team. You're saying, our future is under our control. Which is, I mean, it feels good from the team perspective. Like we all feel like we have more ownership
mhm,
over something that is our own. And then also just from a practical security standpoint,
yeah,
by building this foundation, we are ensuring that we will be here making games for the people we love for a very long time.
mm. And now you've chosen to make as in the quote that we read at the beginning that's on the Kickstarter page, a game that is really using the core of what fifth edition has to it. So it's very familiar. It feels like 5e.
Yeah.
It is a variant of it. Did Kobold Press consider creating an entirely new game system that wouldn't be like D&D?
Yeah, I think from the beginning of this, we always knew it was going to be built on the back of 5e, just in the way that, like, we really love a lot of things about 5e. We've all been lifetime D&D players, right?
Right.
We've grown with the game. We've played it forever. I myself have been GMing for 15 years, right? Like, so we all love this game and the pieces of it. And we also have such a great deal of mastery over
Mm,
5e as well. Like the products we've been putting out, the way we've been thinking about it, the way we've been expanding it with everything that we have on the table, it just would have felt like a shame to us to discard all of that work
yeah.
and all of that like
Mhm.
thought we've put into it too. And then also thinking about our audience, like our audience, our fans are used to 5e, and we don't want to shell shock them with doing something completely different, pulling the cord out. Um, so we want them to feel comfortable. We want them to feel secure in this new game and preserve a lot of the things we love about fifth edition were so important for us to bring into this game that it did seem like the better choice than, wrecking it all down and building from the ground up.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. That's neat. I dig that. And it makes a lot of sense to hear you say it that way. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I get that because I like 5e a whole lot too, and I like
Right. There's so
the
much good stuff in it. We love
yeah,
it. And like we want to keep it.
yeah, that's
We
awesome.
want to keep, we definitely think there are some things we could add or some things we would like to do different, some teeth we want to put on it.
Mm.
But at the end of the day, there's so much good there to keep.
So you all know that you want to do this, and now the time is now because this OGL mess is creating an incredible opportunity and need. And
Yes.
now everybody at Cold Press is sitting around the table saying, "Okay," the table slash Zoom call to say, "Okay, we need to do this project." How do you even approach a project like that? Like, can you take us back to what did you do to even wrap your hands around the enormity of
Yeah.
what you're trying to accomplish?
Right. Yeah, I think from the beginning, yeah, that sense of scale it was tremendous because
Mm,
most of the time you have 2 or 3 people who make an RPG from scratch. They build the game, it's all good, and then they maybe pitch it to a company or sell
Mm.
it
Yeah.
or, involve this production team. We've been doing this as an entire collective from the beginning, which has its benefits and certainly its challenges in this. So I think we're still answering every day, like how best to approach these things, right? Because it is every corner you turn, there's something new you have to consider or work with or be flexible about. So I think our big thing was we wanted to start getting playtest material out as early as possible. A lot of people came back at us and said, "Why did you put out this playtest? This doesn't feel like it's polished." And I'm like, "No, it's a playtest, like very, very intentionally that's the thing." But we felt perhaps the impulse just to start getting things out the door and getting them in front of the people we were making it for. So I think that was our core decision here, because at the end of the day, we realized this game has to do a lot of things. It has to exist in a way that's comfortable for our audience. It has to make them happy. It has to make them feel like they're playing 5e, but stay true to all the stuff they love about Kobold Press. So the biggest way we could do that is by getting it in the hands of people and, inviting them to throw sticks and stones at it and seeing what was working and what wasn't. We learned so much so much from even those small initial like stumbling playtests to the bigger ones, and we're still learning stuff all the time as we are continuing through playtest this entire time.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, that seems to me like a really tough task, because it's one thing when you're inward facing, you're saying, okay, let's build this thing, let's design this RPG. But now you're also saying, and then let's package it up for other people to look at, and let's listen to them and read all these comments and distill that. Woo! Isn't that a lot of work?
Yeah, it's if you all have never experienced a playtest, I encourage you to do so. It teaches you a lot about yourself, about ego, and about teamwork, to an extreme degree. But even through how painful playtesting can sometimes be, it really is just the best way to get the read of the room. Obviously, you're going to get those 20% or so of people who just are going to hate it no matter what you do and want to be there to hate it, or those 20% of people who are like, "I love it unconditionally," and you're like, well, that okay. But like that that 60%, that's super good involved feedback. Because honestly, one of the big challenges was that with this project all the way through has been identifying what do people want to keep about 5e and what do they want to change. And of course, we all have our individual ideas about what that means, like what we want to see change. But a lot of these things, it's like we'll try something and then realize based on feedback, people aren't ready for that change. Or they'll say, "Why haven't you changed this?" And we're like, "We did not expect you to be okay removing alignment like wholesale from 5e," right? Like that was one of those little things that popped up. People are like, "Why are you even bothering with alignment?" We're like, "Wow, okay. Sure. Or, some of our term changes that we tried out, people are like, "I hate that." And we're, "Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. We're going to walk it back." Like in the alpha, this kind of like give and take stuff has been so important to get the read on the pulse of how people are feeling about 5th edition and what they would want out of a new game, a new version of it.
And there must be like a cycle that takes place where you work on something and then you want to share it, but then maybe you start advancing, you want to advance your design further, but the answer isn't back on what people think about it. Like, how does it mess up the whole schedule to have to work with these packets? I mean, I get it that overall it's good, but it's got to be tough at times.
It is. It's really, really hard in terms of development, because it is a lot of starting and stopping and like, okay, this class is out now for playtesting. We have to put this down. We have to put this down and not look at it while we do all this other stuff. But luckily, I mean, the scale of work is so large. There's been plenty to work on in the meantime, but it is certainly, communication has been critical on the internal team, because, you change this one thing here that impacts art, that impacts layout. The fact that this change has to come in due to playtest means that, those files that we were preparing for the next playtest have to change. Like, who's doing that? Who's managing that? So it's a huge effort. And I think people treat us like Wizards of the Coast, which is very nice, I guess. Like thank you. You think of us like that, but we have maybe 15 like full-time employees. Maybe at Kobold Press, we have nowhere near the resources of Goliath. We are just all Davids running around here, like, oh man, that's really neat. That yes.
Yeah.
So it's been a huge amount of work, a huge amount of coordination. I could not be doing it without the very, very talented and wonderful team I'm surrounded by.
That's awesome to hear.
And
And
all the
speaking,
experience that Kobold
yeah,
Press has. Yeah.
yeah. And speaking of that, so when you're trying to create this project, um, how do you even begin to organize? How do you create the processes to have proper internal discussion, make sure the best ideas rise to the top, that everybody's heard, that the staff is as fresh as can be? Because I mean, I can't imagine this is possible without some overworking. But how do you even handle that organizationally, or do you just go and fix as you go as you proceed?
I think because this is brand new for us,
Hmm.
building an entire RPG, one brand new, building an RPG off the back of an RPG with an audience that has such high expectations and involvement in the game, and then our team is growing all the time, obviously, to accommodate this huge amount of work. So we are growing. We're constantly working with a huge team of freelancers, some who have worked for Kobold Press for years and some who are obviously brand new to us and them. So a lot of those relationships and the way we're communicating, there have been some stumbles along the way as we're trying to like find that format and really get things that work. But we're improving all the time on this, creating
Hmm.
our systems of communication, our various teams, right? Like we have, our development team that goes through and like
Hmm.
these are the three people who have to look at everything at this point, and then we send it
Yeah.
to our like internal play testers, right? Who like worked for us for years and stuff like on that, and then maybe our three like dev people have to go back and look at that, and then
Yeah.
at this point we release it to like marketing, who adds their feedback in. So these processes are evolving, but I think our strategy is try to put it through as many people and places, get as many eyes on it as possible. Because
Mhm.
again, this is a game that we're trying to make for a lot of people. Um, so the more people who weigh in, the better. So making sure to take the time and getting this in front of people
Yeah.
is been
Yeah.
huge, and certainly not what you normally do with an RPG at this point in the dev cycle. But we're giving it
Yeah.
our best.
It's awesome.
We're inviting
Um,
everyone into the room, right?
exactly, exactly. Well, thank you for doing that. So in terms of the project goals, so you've mentioned the with teeth, which for sure seems to me like one of those like big. If this were if we were playing Fate, uh, or Fiasco and make an RPG, hopefully not Fiasco.
Yes.
You would have, like, okay, with teeth could be one. What are some other kind of goals or monikers that sort of guide you and the team on creating Tales of the Valiant? Like, what are those upper level goals and aspects?
Yeah, well, another one of our taglines that I really like is the be bold, be
Mm,
brave, be valiant.
mm-hmm.
Like, and that is feeding a lot into the game. Like, this game bleeds heroic fantasy, which you would think would be like, oh, of course, all fantasy games of 5e has that. 5e tries to do a lot of things and kind of shies away from defining itself in a particular niche or genre. So we're going hard. We're going really hard in that heroic aspect here. So we're looking at things and like we look at this option, we're like, oh, is this too I don't know, maybe this isn't the right thing for the core book, right? There's that kind of give and take and back and forth to really make sure that we're being very clear about what the fantasy genre is, how you can tell
Mm-hmm.
stories with it, and also trying to empower people to be part of that storytelling in a lot of ways. So one of our other big goals for this is to reduce GM burden. 5e is great, but
Mm-hmm.
doesn't provide a lot of tools to make the GM's life easier. Or if they are, they're tools that the GM has to seek out
Yeah.
and then incorporate and then use. So we're trying to be really clever about the way we're doing things to reduce complexity on the GM side and also empower the players to be more involved in a way that's helpful. And we can see this in like little things like the way we've redesigned backgrounds, right? How they now have like an adventuring motivation table, right? That you roll
Mm.
on. So this from the beginning trains a PC to think about why am I here adventuring and builds that into their story rather than maybe running into the situation where the PC has to justify why they're here, or the GM has to work really hard to
Mm.
get them involved in this heroic story, right? That's just like one example of the kind of things we're trying to bake in and be clever about when we're talking about heroic fantasy.
And Shawn and I are currently reviewing the DMG, as you know, and we're looking at the 2014 one and thinking about what could be, and this comes up all the time, the kinds of things that you're
Oh,
talking about. But what I'm interested when it comes to Tales of the Valiant is that you don't have a DMG. You've got a player's book and a monster book. So where
yep,
do you
yep,
put this information? How do you handle that? And what sort of led to not having a
yeah.
third core book?
Yeah, well, we looked at the books and said, well, the DMG isn't doing much for 5th edition now. So what if we really took the parts that do a lot for it and matter and we
Mm.
put them in the player's guide so everybody feels like a player and
Mm.
everybody is more an agent of this game, right? We thought it was actually quite nice, the fact that like how to be a game master and that high level kind of stuff is going to be available for the
Mm.
players to read
Yeah.
and look at, so perhaps they have a better understanding of what the amount of work
Mm.
and the job that their game master has at this table here. And
That's
then
cool.
of course we decided monster statistics are probably the only thing that you really need to keep hidden
Mhm.
from your players, so that made sense to keep them in the monster vault. But we are including GM facing advice in the player's book. We have a whole chapter called Running the Game
Mhm.
on it. And it's going to cover the real basics that you need to know, like how to plan sessions, how to deal with
Mhm.
scheduling, how to deal with problem players, how to use safety tools, things like that, as well as the actual real basic stuff you need to know, like what is a dungeon houser? How does
Mm.
it work? Like that kind of stuff that you need to run adventures, you need to run basic games. And then we're going to save complicated stuff, like the ways you can make your game more complex or the ways you could change systems for perhaps another release one
Yeah.
day.
Cool. All right. And all of this approach has been validated pretty well with a Kickstarter that, and I even I think it was like yesterday, last
Almost,
night,
yeah.
wrote at almost 920,000, and it's like at 923. So I can take out that word almost. So
I
you're,
think we're gonna hit 1 million, and we're so excited
I
about it.
think you are, and that's quite the
Yeah,
feat in this era where Kickstarters are very heavy at the first stage, and but I think you will,
yeah,
and you've got more than 7,700 backers. I have to update that too. So
yeah.
it's clearly doing really well in the last 9 days here. That must feel great.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, I'm, not gonna lie to you. None of us are gonna lie to you. Like, this is a huge risk we were
Mhm.
taking. This whole project,
Yeah.
the amount of resources it takes to make something like this happen is huge. So if people didn't love it, if people weren't here with us,
Hmm.
it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So the minute we all hit that like launch button, we're all sitting there going, is this our future, right? Should we look for other jobs? Like, what do this kind of stuff. And then seeing that's just staggering support right out the gate was just so validating and honestly so necessary for our team morale, I think for our fans, for our
Yeah.
community. I think in the public too, to let people know, like, hey, we're serious.
Hmm. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially all the work you're putting into it. That is great. And what does that success do? I mean, obviously it validates and encourages, but does this mean, yeah, like you're talking about, like there might be another book? Or could there be even more, or is it too early to tell?
Well, I mean, this means I think we were looking to see if people are interested in a Tales of the Valiant future for Kobold Press, and I think this is a clear signal that hell yeah, they are. So I think it's safe to say that we are moving forward. All things TOV, like putting the
Yeah.
eggs in the basket. It's happening, and we're excited about
Awesome.
being able to do it.
That's great.
Of course,
Um,
there will be more books, Teos. There are
I
always more
mean,
books. This
so
is something like our 23rd Kickstarter or something. Like
that's
we've
amazing.
been
That
making books
is,
for a long time.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Yeah, it is great. But I mean, this
No
is the
plans on
biggest
stopping.
one you've had, right? So it really is.
Yes, this
Uh,
is yeah. So our second biggest was Deep Magic 2,
mhm,
which kickstarted 3 or 4 months ago, and this one has smashed all the records in terms of number of backers, in terms of like money. Like it, we're just like so
yeah.
grateful, and so humbled by this level of support. It's incredible.
Now, a lot of folks think that in 9 days you will all be on the beach sipping pina coladas or some other wonderful beverage. But I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, that there is actually a lot
Yeah.
of work that will still continue
Yes.
9 days from now. What?
Yes, I think
Give us a
yeah.
snapshot of what else 9 days from now. There's a ton of stuff you're still doing, right? Like what is the project doing at that stage?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, this is so funny when people are like, "Oh my God, you made $1 million on Kickstarter. You're all rich, right?" And it's like, "Oh no, this what this means is that we can bring on more people to help make this even better and make sure that everything goes smoothly." Because beyond design, you have development, which usually happens like hand in hand with the design team taking initial designs, looking at playtest feedback, really fine tuning stuff, and making sure it all sings. That is still going to be ongoing. So design, development, editing really isn't going to stop until we like finally get it all like, okay, no, that's done. We're calling it done. Because we do have the alpha release of the game that is coming soon.
Mhm.
We've talked about that on the Kickstarter, so you can think of it like a video game, right? You're going to have that alpha in your hand,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we want to put it out there and we want people to play with it and see what breaks. So we'll be
Mhm.
working on, incorporating and fixing the things that broke with that. And then from there, obviously, we have to go into layout. So working with our graphics team, uh, getting in art from artists, because we've got to get a bunch of art from this book. We've got something like 20 artists right now working on the various pieces of this and Monsterville. So don't forget, we're making 2 books at the same time,
Yeah.
literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of art pieces that we're getting in, we're coordinating, making sure they have a home, making sure that everything fits in these books. So working very, very closely with that graphics and layout team. And then of course, layout, we have proof editing that's going to come in. So that's going to, the people who fix all of those errors that people love to talk about in playtest
Mhm.
feedback, the proofreading will all happen. And then, of course, just final quality control checks and then getting it to the printer, which itself is a whole, like, we have a whole production wing that getting it to, getting the paper, making sure it all looks good, getting the proofs, reviewing the proofs, getting the shipping out. Like,
Mhm.
there's a lot that
Yeah.
happens to make a book. And everything all at once, everywhere. Like, it is,
Yeah.
so all of that. And then, of course, on top of that, something that people are clamoring for and is really important and we're really committed to doing is making sure we have conversion guides
Mm.
that come out. So after the book is done, making sure people have the free tools and resources to be able to convert anything from 5e into TOV, because you can play anything from 5e at the same table
Mhm.
as anything in TOV. You can mix and match right now, but people want ways to convert stuff
Right.
as well. So making sure we get those tools out, making sure we continue to communicate with our backers and like their expectations are being met. Like,
That's cool.
is a bunch.
So this is clearly an incredible undertaking and a dream project. Dare I ask if you can, through the haze of everything you're involved in right now, think of what else would be a dream project for you, or are you too in the middle of this to even think about something like
It's pretty all consuming
that? Yeah.
right now, but I think what is what is fun about all of this and seeing this standout audience here,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely got us, racing with possibilities. Like, okay, all right, we have this great new like RPG coming out. Like, this is going to be, the heart of our future. Like, what else can we build?
Mm.
What else can we build around this to make this really sing? Like, it feels like right now nothing is off the table, right? In this world of possibility. So
Yeah.
do we go, what, card games? Do we make board games? Do we make like some kind of cool hybrid like system? What do we do with like digital resources for
Mm.
this? Like, we can dare to dream, I think, a little bit about all the stuff that goes around having, right,
Yeah.
this heart, this home system that is
Mm-hmm.
yours. So certainly
That's cool.
there are things spinning, and we're all very excited about what this could potentially, mean and what we can build now that we have a foundation.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for taking time out of all of this, because I know you're so busy, to share this with us. I hope
That's
it helps the
okay.
project as well. Um, Folks who want to
Yeah,
find
never
you,
too busy to nerd out about games.
yay.
Yeah.
Uh, Folks who want to find you, where should they look? Where do you hang out?
Yeah. I am more and more these days very far away from social media, but the only place I sort of consistently post is on my Twitter, at C Conowitch. You can follow me there. Probably that's the best for the latest
Mhm.
and greatest updates. Of course, as Teos mentioned, if you want to see the catalog of my work, things I've worked on, head to celesteconowitch.com. That
Mhm.
website is sort of mostly updated, so you can find cool links
Mhm.
and stuff there. And then just keep your eye on all things Kobold Press. That's really where I'm hanging out as all this is happening. We have a very, very active Discord community,
Mhm.
that's very involved and loving, talking about Tales of the Valiant, already like planning games, clamoring, like, ooh, did you play test this? So like, this is a cool
Uh-huh.
way to go. And, all of the staff reads those comments and gets involved. We even have like a rules, like discussion channel where, we're available to just chat and like clarify things. So head over there. It's a really good time, if nothing else.
Very cool. Awesome. All right. So, Celeste, now that we're done with this recording, what are we going to do now?
I don't know. Go play some video games.
Anything to
Pew,
let off
pew,
some
pew.
steam. Pew pew.
Go finish Tears of the Kingdom. Finally,
You deserve it. We want to thank all of our patrons for allowing us to do this awesome show, to have an excellent guest like Celeste Conowitch on the show. We hope that you enjoyed that interview. Thank you to all of our Master of Dungeons supporters. We want to give a special shout out to our Master of Realms and Master of the Universe patrons. Our patrons get access to our show notes with links and other thoughts inside of them. You get to see the raw way we put together the outline of the show and then what really happened. And sometimes notes we thought we better not say that live, but they're still in our show notes. You also get some additional exclusive content from time to time. So thank you to our Masters of Realms. You are named in our show notes. We really appreciate your support. And to our Masters of Multiverse, we want to say thank you to Keith Amon of The Monsters Know What They're Doing, Craig Bailey, Steve Bissonette, Merrick Blackman, Evil John, John Carney, Darren Chandler, Andy Edmonds at Nerdronomicon, Ben Heisler and Paige Laitman, Shawn Hurst, Brian King, Jim Klinger, aka DM Prime Mover, Travis Lee, Chad Lynch, The Mathemagician, Eric Mengi, The Micro Ant, Sean Molly, Falcon Neal, Post Fiction RPG Audio, Chance Russo at Drago Russo, Ross Sandberg, Krishna Simons, Joe Tyler, James Walton, and Graham Ward. We truly appreciate it. You can find us on patreon.com/masteringdnd if you would like to join the show and have not done so far. If you can, leave us a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And on YouTube, subscribe, click on that notification bell icon, and that helps us greatly. You can find me at alphastream.org. From there, you can reach all the various socials and other places where I have things, including my videos, which this week will include a new Success in RPGs video talking about how to use the Open Gaming License, or OGL. Shawn, where can we find you? Wait, that's my voice. Shawn, where can we find you? Oh, you can find me. I'm supposed to be a flump. I don't think that sounds like a flump. But anyway, you can find Shawn on Twitter at Shawn Merwin. He is also on Mastodon, like I am, at dice.camp. And you can reach us with questions through the @MasteringDND address on Twitter or on Mastodon, through the Mastering Dungeons YouTube channel. Patreon members, you can talk to us directly on the Discord.